Welcome to the Porsche Club Insider, your one stop for all things Porsche and PCA. Here's your host, Vu Gwyn, and the Insider crew.
Thank you for joining us. It's episode 151. By the time you hear this, it'll actually be about 2 weeks from the day that we're actually recording this. So before we start, I did want to take a moment to say that our heart goes out to all those that are affected by the California wildfires. I know lots of PCA members, my own family out in California, and I know a lot of people are going through quite a bit, and our heart goes out to them. And, you know, the things that we're going to be talking today might seem a bit trivial compared to what everyone is going through. So I just wanted to say that. Let's a little bit of housekeeping. I do want to thank Pirelli for sponsoring Porsche Club Insider. Today we have our normal cast of characters around the table. We have Manny, we have Damon, and myself at headquarters. And, before we get into the topics, let's say if you have a Porsche and you haven't joined PCA yet, what are you waiting for? Grab that VIN, head over to PCA.org and get yourself set up with PCA membership. If you're looking for a Porsche for your driveway or garage, we have the test drive program, again, available to you at PCA.org. We were together for some time this past weekend because I thought it was the last day of the coffee shop that we normally hang out at Cars and Coffee at Hunt Valley, but it looks like we might have one or two more weekends there.
The 22nd, which, of course, by the time people are listening to this,
Pete's
Coffee in Maryland is gone.
Pete's Coffee? Pete's Coffee, a big brand.
Wow.
And
it was supposedly like their highest performing store. I mean, they had sent the employees on like a Caribbean vacation because they did so well a year or two ago. And we watch how, at least on the weekends, that place is nonstop. Not like in the morning, they have a rush.
No.
Nonstop. And somebody even said that they stopped by one time after doing grocery shopping in the afternoon. Packed.
So how does a business like that end up not surviving?
If the mall raised the rent, if being a franchisee and the only one in Maryland, I'm sure it's going to cost more to ship.
Yeah,
coffee.
Oh, it's really the only one in Maryland.
Only one in Maryland.
Wow.
Oh,
yeah, I remember.
I never noticed that because we travel and we see Pete's quite a bit, but I didn't realize.
I was surprised to see it in Maryland when I first moved out here because so I lived in Northern California for a couple of years, and it's the first one's in Berkeley actually. So that's where I know it from. Not Maryland. It's not a very Maryland sort of franchise.
Another coffee shop takes this place because for those listening, this place is within 30-second walk from where we do Cars and Coffee when the weather's nice. Next door is a Panera. It's not the same.
It's not the same. And before it was pizza, it was Caribou Coffee.
Oh, that's what it was.
Remember that?
Yep. No, I don't remember, but now as you said it, I do remember.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's outfitted to be a coffee shop, so hopefully someone picks it up and
I'd even tolerate Starbucks.
Oh, listen, you tolerate.
I'd rather be a local coffee shop.
So here's a funny thing. I don't like Starbucks coffee. I like Starbucks cold brew. Big difference.
Oh, okay, well,
it really is.
It sounds funny you saying that because you literally go there every day.
Yeah, their coffee sucks. Their cold brew, their vanilla sweet cream.
Do they have levels of membership? Like, are you like gold or platinum or?
No. Well, I mean,
now.
maybe. I have a Starbucks card, so I get a free drink probably more often than most people.
Yeah.
But
because a lot of us had racked up points from Pete's, but I guess I hadn't been using them.
Oh,
I don't think they had the easiest app to use for that. But anyways, that's one of the reasons we had to go. Some people got Pete's gift cards for Christmas, and they had to use those up.
well, San Jose Airport.
yeah.
I see them at the airports. Yeah, that's what blew me away. That they said this one here was so the best selling one because of I'm like airports are packed.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I also missed another fun event, and this is a tradition for the Chesapeake region, and it was actually close by. But
People are asking
I know.
you weren't there.
Yeah, I was in D.C., and that was the Chesapeake region after holiday party, a tradition that is so much fun, and I'm assuming it was well attended and sold out.
It was sold out. I think most everyone who was on a wait list got in the last minute, mainly because the Ravens were playing at home against the rival Pittsburgh Steelers for the wild card playoff game. So I think some people asked if they could cancel, still get a refund, and luckily there was people on the wait list,
Oh.
so it all worked out.
I was watching the Ravens game.
It was still sold out, and well, actually, you had gone to the party. You could watch the second half. In fact, we were when we were driving home, we were listening to the radio, and just passing by Raven Stadium, and when he scored the touchdown.
Oh.
And there must have been only about a 2-second delay on the radio because immediately you saw the fireworks come from the stadium, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anyways, the event was very well. For those listening, this isn't your usual holiday or after holiday party where there's speeches and awards. Here they play Yankee Swap, where everyone brings a Porsche gift that's wrapped. We don't know who brought it.
Minimum value or maximum value?
I think they said recommended price is $30.
$30.
There's some people do, and other people though, because they do keep track of which gift got stolen the most. And if you want to admit that you brought that gift, and you get to brag that you got to, and that's what a lot of people like to do, is brag that they brought the gift that was stolen the most.
I mean, I think I've seen in the past, stuff that 20 signatures from drivers, from a Rolex to art.
They had a lot of Rolex, the special Porsche posters that Porsche made up with the 963, and they had framed them, and and I think they had like both teams, 6 and 7, all the drivers on the autograph.
Nice.
Somebody brought a very vintage looking frame and picture of Dan Gurney driving the Porsche Formula One car in 1962.
Yeah.
There was a Porsche that like vintage looking. It looks like a little 6-volt battery maintainer.
Uh-huh.
Somebody brought one of those. There wasn't a bad gift. First time in 30-some years that we've been doing this that someone didn't bring a non-Porsche related or non-automotive related.
Usually has like a gag gift, but this time none. No bad
The
ones?
anatomically correct Santa Claus might have not been considered a gag. I thought it was funny, but
What about that royalty picture of you? Did it make its debut?
Yes, the third world dictator picture. Yeah.
Was that a
I
present
think
that someone
Todd
took home?
Bernard brings that every year. He
Yeah.
keeps it and brings it back and puts it on display every year. It was a very fun event, and the whole swap was done in an hour and a half.
Nice, efficient.
And, we like I said, we were back on the road right around halftime.
Nice. So, Damon, did you spend your weekend tinkering with the new vehicle, the Cayenne that you just got?
A little bit. It was a little chilly, and so I didn't do a whole ton. But I did, clean the garage a little bit to make a little bit more room for the Cayenne, so it can be parked in there easily.
Okay.
And researching parts, I've already got a remanufactured automatic transmission valve body with the new solenoids and a brake kit from FCP Euro with all the hardware.
So tell our listeners why the transmission.
Yeah, exactly. So I forget how much I've shared at this point. I'm pretty sure in the last podcast I shared that I had bought Rob's Cayenne, but Rob's Cayenne, it's now mine. It has about 168,000 miles on it, really well maintained, but as with any old car, things break. And one of the common problems on the earlier 0405, as Rob was describing, and it might even affect later cars, I'm not quite sure, but definitely the earlier models, is there's an assembly with a bunch of solenoids inside the transmission that basically turn on and off, hit rods in and out, and that's, I guess, how the transmission shifts. And they get sticky or stuck if you don't change your fluid or just age and wear. And I think what happens is that they don't, engage and disengage as easily. It's a little bit slower. So some shifts can be really hard, like somebody, just hit you on your back, give you a big back slap. Sometimes it's just like a regular automatic transmission.
Is it in the lower gears or the higher gears?
Doesn't really matter, but
you could do it in the high.
1 to 2, 2 to 3 happens a little bit more, although 1 to 2 doesn't happen because it starts out in second usually. Yeah. But the 2 to 3 happens more often than not. 3 to 4 is usually okay. 4 to 5 kind of isn't great. 5 to 6 is good. But it can happen to any gear, really. It's just, I'd say probably 50% of the shifts are good, and then 25% are okay.
The 6-speed transmission?
Yeah, 6-speed.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
So can you buy the individual solenoids, or do you have to buy the whole?
I looked. It wasn't easy to find individual solenoids, so I just gave up on that. I started looking for used valve bodies, and then stumbled upon some remanufactured units because the actual part from Porsche, if you go into Pelican Parts, it's a $2,600 part, and it's shared between the Touareg, a bunch of Audi SUVs. I think the Q7 is what the Cayenne basically was. So they're around. You can find used versions, but I kind of wanted a newer remanufactured unit.
It's a reman.
Yeah, so hopefully it works. The seller on eBay seems like he does this for a living, and very responsive. He takes returns. He double checked before he sent that my VIN matched the solenoid and told me if I needed help, let him know. So I'm like,
oh, that's good.
Okay. So crossing fingers on that.
And is it as easy as dropping the transmission pan?
I think so. Peter Smith, our Goldmeister tech, who we often ask questions, about DIY work, said that it is extremely, extremely messy. So, and I don't think that means really hard to do, but and I've seen online, other people have said, it's because you take the pan or you drain the transmission fluid.
Yeah.
From the drain plug, I think, then you take the pan down. And then you're working under the pan as transmission fluid is dripping on you.
That would drip for a year and still be dripping.
Yeah, so it'll be messy. But hopefully, I put it in and it's fill up the transmission and it's good.
So do you have a list of to-dos for the Cayenne now?
Not yet, just brakes and that. Okay. And, the things I can see. Like one of the side marker lights, the running lights is out, so I'll just, on the side of the car. The headlights... check adjustment, it says, but they seem to work just fine.
Yeah, mine has that too. It's a check headlight level or something like that. And I don't know. There's on the front suspension. There's like a level. I don't even like a level
something that. Yeah.
I know.
What you mean.
Level sensor.
Yeah, level sensor.
So as your suspension compresses or whatever, it changes the aim up and down of the headlight. And I think that's what's gone bad on mine. But then I also know, I think I shared with you, when you're working on the headlight, just
be careful.
Inside the headlight, some of the insulation on those wires are super brittle. I think 996s and 986s also suffer from that. So as you're playing around there, just be careful.
I'm probably just going to leave the headlight because they're on.
Works.
They still
they
work.
They just don't dip.
Yeah, they don't dip as much, and they sometimes wiggle a little bit. I feel like when I come up to a stop, I can see them sort of shudder for a second, but. They're on. They work.
My question is, and I look at Jim's Cayenne. He does not have the HID
bi-xenons
like we do. His headlights are perfect. They're beautiful. His car's garaged and well kept. I mean, I consider for a short second, like, could you? Because those are much cheaper, much cheaper than the Xenon.
Oh yeah,
ones.
I would so backdate that thing.
I was like, could you?
I could, yeah.
Could you just swap out a non-Xenon set, or do you have to code it? That's why I don't know. I've been meaning to ask.
Yeah, it's something I want to look into because I don't think. I mean, let's be real. It's a $3,600 Cayenne that once it's all fixed up is still going to be less than $5,000.
Yeah, you don't want to.
It's not worth. I mean, the headlight itself probably costs $5,000 or more.
Yeah, it's
brand new.
Cheap,
the Xenon one does.
So
yeah. So,
anyway.
I think I shared with you all. I started to do an easy crank position sensor swap, 1-bolt swap, and shared with you that I broke the head off of that that bolt. So it sits on the driveway. I'm probably going to head over to Bob Miller and At Speed when it gets nice out or whatever, and hopefully be able to drive it over there, and we'll film how we take out this stud from the transmission. But while that happened, I've been driving my son's Honda Fit, and on Friday I noticed there was like a bit of a metallic like rattle, and then at first I was like, man, I think I was hoping that it would be Hondas and Toyotas and some other cars as well, Subarus especially, are known for like heat shields that rust and go bad and rattle, but this was much more of an aggressive, like you could hear it like someone's like taking a hammer and kind of knocking on the block, and I'm like, oh man, when it rains, it pours. So, any guesses? So at idle, it sounds perfectly fine, no noise. But you add a little bit of throttle, you get a little bit of a hammer hitting the case sound. If you blip it hard, you really hear it. So obviously I didn't do that very often, or didn't do it for a long period of time, so I shut it off.
I'm thinking rod bearing or something.
On a Honda?
I mean,
like really?
I don't know. Like I haven't heard it yet, but like that's the immediately thing.
I'm like, oh man, it does not sound good. Any guesses, Manny?
Blown motor mount.
I would no. That's not.
You know?
Either. I do know.
You do know.
I do know. So the interesting part
Last
is
Saturday he didn't know.
last Saturday.
What the fan is hitting something inside the.
I wish. So when it happened on Friday, and I immediately parked it, I was picking up Jonah from school, so I parked it. There's no check engine light, which really threw me off. And then after Cars and Coffee, I went home. It was kind of sunny, so I was like, let me just start it again. And the check engine light did come on, and then it went into limp mode. It wouldn't go past 1,500, 2,000 RPM. I'm like, okay, now I need to really dig into this. I'm like, I just can't. I couldn't understand what it was. So ran the code because the check engine light did come on, and it came up as P303, a misfire in cylinder 3. So if it was 032, that would be cylinder 2. If it's 0301,
Did it eject a spark plug?
It did. How did you know that?
I had a friend that just happened to him.
How do you know that?
Yeah, no, it literally happened. He drove up to his home.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god."
Yeah.
And then he looked in, and one of the spark plugs was laying
Literally,
outside.
So with the fit, you have to take off the cowl and blah blah blah. And I'm pretty sure my brother's never replaced it, and I haven't either. So I go to pull coil pack on cylinder 3.
Yeah.
Not only does the coil pack come out, but the spark
So
plug
it's the
comes out
temperature. The temperature change over potentially a long period of time, the hot and the cold and the hot and the cold, it'll start backing itself out. And then
Did you replace the spark plugs at any point?
I haven't. So it's probably my fault. But I know my brother's definitely
Probably
hasn't.
didn't.
So
Yeah.
I should have.
So you think it's an original spark plug?
I think so.
Your brother bought it new, right?
No, he was he was a second owner.
Okay.
I think second owner. So here's the thing. I've heard about this happening on. I was on a forum for 996s, and people were saying if you hear this rattle, and it just all kind of came back to me okay, now it makes sense of how it can rattle at a high RPM because it was basically pushing the spark plug out in.
Yeah.
I'm like, really? So I guess that's good news.
Yeah, it
because
is.
it's not something significant.
it'll fix itself. Yeah, no, that's good news.
Well, but of course, I'm like, okay, I took out. So my original idea was to just swap coil packs and see if the error followed the coil pack, which means the coil pack is bad. Mm-hmm. So when I pulled out the number 3 cylinder with the plug, I'm like, okay, well, the plug itself looks perfectly fine. The threads on the plug looks fine. And then because I didn't have new plugs and or coil packs, I was just going to put it back together. And so I turned the plugs by hand in cylinder 3 back in, and it's not super smooth, but I don't know that it's bad.
Yeah.
My friend is going to let me borrow his little a scope, I think. And for listeners, if you guys have and I think I probably want to buy one. I'll see what he has, but if listeners, if you have a little scope that you use that you like or can suggest, I would appreciate a suggestion on that.
Yeah.
But what I want to do is I want to scope the threads just to make sure it isn't some crazy damage in there. But I'm assuming if it bounced out, it's probably the first 2 threads, maybe.
Yeah. So my friend, the spark plug ejected. The threads are fine. He just put the spark plug in the coil pack back on.
But did he? Did it go on smoothly, or did he just jam it back in?
It's running fine now.
Yeah.
So it's in my 914.
Huh?
It happened
to
me,
your 914?
But it was during the summertime.
I've never.
I was
had
driving home on 95, and I heard this loud banging sound.
Yeah.
And so I pulled right over.
So it's a thing.
Open the engine lid, and as I'm looking around, as I go to the passenger side of the car, I see the spark plug just laying.
Really?
It was so connected to the wire.
Yeah, but it was off the case.
I looked inside. I'm like, what the hell? So I didn't have any tools with me, so I just put it back in by hand. It was really hot too.
Oh, jeez.
So I'm doing the best I can with about burning myself and tightening this up. And I plugged the spark plug wire back on, fired it up, and it was running fine. And so I just drove it home.
I've never
tightened it up when I got home.
I've never heard of, except for that one time I read in the forum about the 996 spark plug wanting you should tighten it up every now and again. But is there a regular interval that spark plugs should be tightened so that this doesn't happen? I mean,
Yeah, that's the thing. I've never heard of a spark plug tightening interval.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let me do a little bit of show and tell. We'll throw this on. Check this out. Now that you know what the problem is, you'll probably know what this.
Oh, I should also say the Camry's going to a shop tonight/tomorrow, so I can get it fixed, the brake line, and can sell it finally.
Have you seen one of these before? This is made by Powerbuilt, which is a very cool design. 14
For the wheels, right?
14 millimeter thread where your spark plug goes through.
Oh,
So what you do is you pass this through the spark plug hole, and then you put a bunch of grease on it so it catches if you're straightening up a thread. And when you pull this makes it exactly 14 millimeter. So when you back it up, it's going to clean.
tap and die. Wow.
It's going to clean the thread as you back it up, and it catches all the little shavings.
Oh, that's awesome.
Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, that is. I actually wouldn't mind this.
Yeah.
Power built, huh?
Yeah. Because they have some where you just do a tap and die traditionally, and you clean the threads going in, but the problem is you don't want that debris falling into the top of the pistons, and you can put grease and you can blow it out, this, that, and the other. But this one is designed to work so that you clean the threads as you're taking it out. So, anyways, that's
cool.
probably going to be this weekend's project, and I'm taking my time.
You're gonna do all the spark plugs or just this one?
No, I'm gonna. I bought all new spark plugs, bought all new coil packs, which maintenance is key, folks. I delayed on this one, and this is probably my fault that
Because you have too many cars.
it is, and that's a good question. So people that have a lot of cars, you may do you maybe this is a question for Nathan, because he always talks about buying the seller. But if someone has too many cars, do you worry that they aren't on top of their maintenance because they have too many cars?
I do.
Or do they have a helper?
Do they have a?
I think Nathan has a helper, right?
Yeah,
We meet
Nathan
him
has a helper,
at the shop. So if you have someone helping you, that makes a big difference. If
Right.
I'm always amazed at the same thing because I have 3 Porsches and I'm maxed out and trying to keep track of oil changes. I don't have a helper, so it's keeping them driven. All this stuff that I wonder about Bob. With 12 or 13, something like that now up to, and he doesn't have a helper. Right?
And it doesn't even have to be about how many Porsches you have, just cars in general. Like my fall oil change schedule, because all my cars at minimum get an oil change once a year. It's a lot.
Yeah.
I had a small moment where I was like, maybe I should sell a number of my everyday cars and just get one like newer, I don't know, something super simple.
Maybe.
Maybe built after the pandemic.
Huh?
Maybe built after the pandemic.
Yeah. I don't know.
What year's your Honda?
Which
your,
one?
Your Civic.
That's Loan's car though.
Well, what year is it?
That's a 2022.
All right, so you have one built after the.
Yeah. I mean, for her, all new cars. The last thing I want her is to have to be stuck somewhere in an old car. So yeah, she's the one that always gets the new cars. I get the old ones. So
how many cars do you have stashed here at the office?
I only have the Corolla out back, and when I don't have the Corolla here, I have the van parked out back. So, only one. That's not that bad. Yeah. All right, let's get into speaking of buying cars. Let's talk about Porsche sales, both worldwide and U.S. And to be honest, it's I don't know. We've been talking about Chinese market and stuff like that, but I would say this is more of a positive tone, especially when you're talking about
it all depends on what article you're reading
and what market you're in.
Positive tones don't get readership. Negative stuff always gets readership.
Always gets readership.
The world's ending with Porsche. People read that. Yeah. The world's great with Porsche. People just flip over to the next article.
Exactly.
So what'll be interesting to hear, dive deep into this. Hopefully we can get Michael Tam on the podcast. From Porsche.
He's coming to Tech Tactics.
He's coming to Tech Tactics. Him and Mike DiPietro.
Sweet.
Maybe they can shed. The tough thing about these articles is they're relying on Porsche's press release of sales numbers, and that's very generic. They don't get down to, they just put 718, but they're
Right.
not listing, going deep into
If
the
it's
trim
GT4
line.
RS or
Yeah.
Spider or Base or GTS.
That's why when
Yeah.
we get so many calls and emails, people asking how many black manual with the Aero Kit 2007 997.
In other words, tell me my car is special.
yeah. They don't. I always tell them, I go, Porsche has that info.
Yeah.
They just don't release it.
Yeah, Porsche stopped sharing individual like model info. Like they'll tell you what the model, like the 718 line in general, has sold in certain markets globally, but they're not going to drill down into whether your S was produced. 2,000 of them exist, or
I find that that's interesting, and I like
Yeah.
the numbers too. In fact, my Turbo Look, I always talk about limited numbers. But do other car enthusiasts expect manufacturers to share build numbers like Porsche people do?
I've been told that Mustang does that.
Mustang does that?
Very
Oh.
detailed info will tell you how many of a certain are made,
Oh.
and they do it for free.
Oh man, how
And
do
they
they
tell you
have,
about your car. I was.
how do they have the manpower to do that?
My theory is that once Porsche figures out to monetize this information, they'll probably sell it like they do with the what's it called, the Porsche product specification
Yeah.
sheet, which is the old certificate of authenticity.
Yeah.
They figured how to make money on the information they have, so maybe that'll happen. But anyways, the sales numbers came out for the end of the year worldwide, and of course there was a separate press release just for North America. And of course, what we've been talking about, at least all of the second half of 2024, was the downfall in China.
30%,
28%.
28.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's 30%, 28 is all.
Close enough.
It's not good news.
Yeah.
It went up in every other market except China. China, of course, is what people focus on because Porsche has put a healthy investment into China, and then suddenly to see the sales just plummet, and they've announced that 1 out of 3 dealers are going to be closed, which is pretty huge.
Yeah.
When you figure they just opened them up not too long ago.
So we should probably say that, in 2024, Porsche globally delivered 310,718 vehicles, and that was a 3% decrease from 2023, purely because the Chinese market was down 28%, while all the other markets were up a little bit.
They were all up single digit.
Yeah, single and
Well,
low
Germany
double
was
digit.
11%.
Yeah,
Oh, it
low
was?
double digit,
Okay.
digit for a couple.
But
So-
North America up 1%. So, it was a tough year because of China, and that's definitely changed a lot of the way Volkswagen Porsche is looking at 2025. The worldwide, they didn't specify exact numbers, obviously, but if we move to North America, there we do have numbers. Now, North America, total production or total sold, 76,167 versus 75,415 for 23. So they had a slight increase in sales.
Oh, yeah. I see what you mean. North America versus Canada. Yeah.
Yeah.
The I
Or
guess
North
the-
America versus it's North America this year versus or 2024.
Yeah, for those who are wondering, actually, our Canadian friends and members, 75,899 in the U.S. and I guess they didn't have a Canadian number here, but the total number in North America is 86,541. So it kind of gives you an idea of how many more Porsches are sold in the U.S. It's kind of crazy to think.
The obvious thing that stands out for me is you saw the increases year to year in mostly two doors, except for the Cayenne, and Taycan, Panamera, and Macan fell a bit short.
Taycan, no surprise, and
Yeah.
of course, once again, people like bad news better than like good news.
Yeah.
And that was primarily because the new Taycan was coming out and going to be delivered in early 2025, late 2024. So those numbers would not be shown in these final sales numbers. Obviously, and Porsche dealers were also heavily discounting that first-gen Taycan because they wanted to get them off the floor as quick as possible so
Yeah.
that people could buy the new version. 718 was a surprise, and I want to ask Michael if that was due to deliveries of the GT4 RS and the RS Spider, because the 718 platform has gotten pretty old. They haven't really, improved it since 2016.
Well, the 718 is 2016, but that platform originates with the 981 in 2012. So, yeah, it's a really old platform.
It's a good platform.
Yeah,
They're
really
working
good.
Great.
Yeah.
They've been making incremental improvements along the way, but nonetheless,
And we're talking U.S. here, right?
yeah, U.S.
Yeah.
The two hot models were the RS Spider and the GT4 RS. I know that seems like a long time ago from when they were announced, but remember, these sales numbers are when they're delivered. So a lot of these were being delivered in 2024.
So I find it kind of funny to see that the 718, was a 25.9% increase over 2023 in U.S. sales numbers and deliveries, I should say. But that still only means the 718 was 5,698 cars,
Yeah.
which just seems like such a small number,
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you think the increase of the sales of 718s because people were hedging that with the EV versions coming out, that this might be sort of the last of the last?
No, they watched my video and they're like, "Oh man, Damon's right." I'm gonna go. Yeah, probably. That's what I think.
Talking to some general managers,
Yeah.
they didn't see any.
Increase at all.
No, that's why I asked. I said, so did you have people running for your doors when the EV only was announced and the end of 718? And he was like, not really. He said, we have some on the floor. He said, we still have for sale.
Well, 5,698 cars sold. If that spread pretty evenly, maybe you wouldn't notice all that much. It's not
That's
a
what I'm
huge
wondering.
number.
Compared to 2023, was that extra boost was because of the special models being delivered? I don't know if that's the reason why.
Are models still seeing ADM?
I think special models are. Yeah.
Special models are still seeing ADM? Yeah. How about just like a base model 718?
From what I've spoken to general managers, they're selling at MSRP.
They're selling it at MSRP.
Yeah,
Wow. Now's the time.
they're still a wait.
There's still a wait.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's
yeah.
part of this too. Is
Oh.
if they're counting the sales when it's delivered, how many people were waiting just for their builds to come in? It's there's a lot of missing information that when I read some of these articles, I think to myself, if you read into the article, there's a lot of fluff in there. They're trying to make a lot of this report, but there's not a lot of detail,
Not a lot of detail.
which hopefully we'll have once we talk to the people we know at PCNA.
Another good thing though is 911 14,128 delivered in the US, which is a 20.8% increase, which that you have to think that some of that's the 992.2. Although, are those being delivered yet?
No, I don't. And
I don't think so.
to your
No.
point, Damon, I think next year, 2025 numbers will probably show very favorably because you think of the fact they have the Carrera T, they have the S that came out, and the GTS. All these will be delivered.
Yeah.
And of course the new turbo will be delivered also.
Yeah.
So I think we'll see a big
Real bump.
big punch for the 911.
But yeah, that means 14,000 911s roughly and about 5,700 718s. That resulted, 26% of all Porsches in the U.S. Sold or delivered were two doors.
Yeah.
So a quarter of the lineup.
Manny, you mentioned you went, I think it was to New Jersey for the arrive and drive the different models. In the last 2 weeks, I've ran into 3 people that went to something similar at Summit Point. And they were really excited that they got invited to go and try out. And I want to say it's not very often that I have people that I don't know say that they go to something like that and say that they are now interested in a 2-door car. Like usually when I meet random people, they're talking about they want to get into a Macan or they want to talk about getting into a Cayenne because maybe that's the sort of circle of life people that I'm around. But this program that you went to, I think it's kind of working, because I'm meeting people that are really haven't thought about maybe getting a 2-door before, and they're like, oh, but when we drove the Taycan, we drove the Macan, and then we got to drive. Actually, the 3 people, all of them wanted 718s.
Yep. See, underrated.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
So, it'd be interesting to see how long the 718 platform stays, and are they going to figure out the EV version and battery suppliers, and if it's delayed, then more 718s for everybody.
Yeah. All I have to say is just look at how long Dodge used that old Mercedes platform for the Challenger and Charger, right? Porsche can use that 718 platform for a good number of years if they wanted to. I'm just crossing my fingers here, making a wish.
No, as long as the brand still remains something that people want to aspire to own, they can get away with making incremental small aero improvements, keeping the engine relatively the same. But even, when the new S came out, Damon and I were talking about how it's basically the old GTS.
Right.
But I don't think people are going to the dealer saying, yeah, it's nothing new, I'm not going to get this. Everyone wants an allocation for that car.
Have you gotten the invitation to drive the GTS yet?
No, I don't get them. That goes to your editor.
Yep.
And then he
distributes
them.
The crumbs fall to the floor, then Damon and I pick them up.
Whoever's there first gets to go.
I don't even get a crumb. Dag, I get left out.
Yeah, but you get to go to fun stuff like president's meetings. And,
Thanks. Wait a minute. Now I got to rethink all this. Another video recently, speaking of if you're not getting into a newer Porsche, you were so giddy, Damon, of Doug DeMuro's video.
On the Cayman? Yeah, it's what I've been saying every single time.
You feel so validated.
I am validated, 100%. I've been saying it for 5-6 years now, and living the life with the Cayman, and I'm just really happy. So Doug DeMuro, the car that he reviewed, I believe, is one of his employees at Cars and Bid's car, because I remember him reviewing that car, a few months ago or last year. But it's a macadamia brown metallic 987 Cayman with a 5-speed .1. It's an '08 model, so last year of the .1 Cayman.
It's a base model. Then.
It's a base model. Yeah, with a 5-speed. So whoever bought it originally didn't opt for the 6-speed. So a very base model within a nice color. And Doug DeMuro basically said there's no other car on the market right now that offers the combination of value, decent acceleration, reliability, like everything you want in a sports car that if you needed to, you could use every day. It could be your only car.
I remember he did a great review of the Alfa Romeo, I think 4C, the Cayman competitor.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
It was a beautiful car. I mean, Alfas are always just absolutely gorgeous cars. And it looked like a justifiable competitor to the Cayman. But after you watch his review, you realize that why Porsches are everyday cars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the front hood on the Alfa did not open up.
I know. There's no
line
storage.
So we were just looking at one a couple weeks ago, my Cars and Coffee friends, and we went to a local dealer. And I said, it's funny how this hood doesn't open up. And the one guy goes, no, it opens up. And I'm like, no. I said, it doesn't. And he asked the salesperson. The salesperson said, no, it doesn't open. I said, why do they have these gaps here that look like it would open? He goes, just for the look.
Makes you feel more comfortable.
How inside, the only storage Doug showed was it looked like a 6x6, maybe 4x4 box between the seats that you could store. Maybe a wallet in there. But, you look at the Cayman, it has so much storage inside. Extra.
It's a
little
good
coffee
balance.
hole and stuff. Yeah. It really made you appreciate. Yeah, maybe the Cayman's a little bit more pedestrian compared to the Alfa, but holy cow, living with it.
Yeah,
give me the Cayman.
Yeah. I will have you say I don't remember Doug saying one single bad thing negative about that car in the whole video.
Yeah,
and I'm super happy to see that car is getting a little bit more recognition right now. And he also mentioned. He said he was looking at, sold prices for the 2.7 Cayman right now, 14 to 18. I bought mine for 14.7. Like, go if you want a Cayman. Now's the time.
14 to 18. That's a lot of car for the money.
It's a lot.
How many miles did your Cayman have when you bought it?
50,000. So it was less, but I would still well maintain 100,000 mile car.
Yeah. Well, we talked a few episodes ago about don't overlook base models, and this is one example, obviously. But we had a few of our viewers also agree about how they drove a base model and drove the next one up, and they're like, "This one's perfect for me for what the use is." Yeah. So, all right. Speaking of whether or not we need or do not need, how about the new 911S and no manual transmission?
So it was interesting reading some comments. Of course, there's a ton of articles about this car when it came out, including one we have on PCA.org. But the other comments was from people who read these articles, really slamming the manual. I was surprised, saying PDK is better and this, that, and the other. And yes, PDK is the superior transmission if that's what you want. But there's a lot to be said about manually choosing your gears.
Yeah,
and that everything is not a stoplight Grand Prix. So it's kind of sad when we see the end of the manual in our eyesight. It's coming to an end.
And to me, it's another head scratcher because the 991.1 GTS without the hybrid, they offered a manual with that, just like the Carrera T, but not in the S. So now that they've had the engine making the exact same power as the old GTS, why do they take the manual away?
You know why? Take rate. That's the reality of it. It's just the take rate.
I guess they have to, you would think it's already been developed. They've done, crash testing and things like that, but it's...
Which makes me think, are we seeing a evolution of a different type of enthusiast? Because there was I'm sure the older enthusiasts will say, well, these new guys, they don't even work on their cars. And that may be true because there's not a lot
to work on
unless you have certain high-priced equipment for you to work on.
Yeah.
I mean, the rate of having to do stuff on your car on a 718, the intervals are a lot less than what it is on a 56, right?
Here's a novel idea. How about we buy a car we don't have to work on, and then we can just drive? I mean,
yeah, I mean, people,
right?
People
that's what people are saying.
When the Boxster first came out, I heard a lot of complaints where people said, you can't even work on a car. You can't even get to the engine. And I was like, well, what are you going to do to it?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no valves to adjust anymore. You can go, 50,000 miles between spark plug changes. What are you going to do to it that you need to see the engine right now?
The reality is 99% of the people buying cars today, they want a nice car. They're enthusiastic. They want to drive the heck out of it. Are they really going to work on it? No.
Probably not.
Transmission, I love the dance. I love having the perfect shift, and it is fun. But yeah, I mean, I don't blame Porsche if it's not a customer demand.
So this is what I will give them. So I'm, of course, always disappointed. I think I've talked about this, and this is just the latest thing where the old GTS had a manual. You would think just like, the 911R got the GT3's manual back in the day, that they would just take that transmission, it fits, put it in there, it's another option. So not happy about that. But then, the GT4 RS is that in the Spider. So they've been doing musical chairs with manual transmissions, I feel like, and certain options. But if you look at the 911 lineup now and what you can buy compared to the 991 or 992.1, each car has a vastly different personality compared to the next one up in the lineup compared to past generations. Because the Carrera T, it's the only way you can get a manual.
Yeah.
So that in itself endows it with some character and the seats and the options you can get for it. The base Carrera, that's for people who just want basic transportation and a PDK, right? The Carrera S, it's now the GTS.
Yeah.
The GTS is a hybrid, so the cars are all so different from one another now in this single lineup. So I will give Porsche that.
And you still have your choice.
And you still have your choice.
You still have your choice. Other manufacturers, especially high performance vehicles, you don't.
Yeah. Porsche's casting a wider net, which is good, but it's the details.
It is sad.
Why do they have to get rid of the manual for the S?
I think it's a new type of enthusiast. I don't think it's necessarily bad because I think people evolved, and at one time our generation was the new enthusiast. And I think, ABS, power steering,
Yeah.
stuff that was unheard of in a Porsche now is something we expect. And I think that
And also,
it's something that's just going to be normal. And maybe people will question, why do you want something in your car that's going to be slower?
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So that also goes back to some of these sales numbers. I wonder, as people care less about having the fastest car, and now I'm thinking care more about the feel you get when you drive it, whether that's because it's a manual or because you spec'd, full leather interior or, paint a sample exterior. It seems like that might drive sales numbers more, affect people's choice. Because if you're not worried about speed, you're not going to go for a 911 necessarily anymore. You might consider a 718. So I don't know. Maybe that's a stretch, but
I think
like a
that's
Carrera
stretch.
T, if you want a manual, you obviously have to know you're not going to have the fastest car anymore.
Yeah, I think there's different types of buyers, right? There's buyers that just have to have the best, regardless, and regardless of their driving experience. They just got to have a 911 Turbo S. It's just they got to have, or they got to have the GT2 RS. They will always prioritize that way. And then you have enthusiasts that want how it makes them feel when they're driving, regardless of the power, the engagement, the
And
balance
I think that
of
group
power.
is growing
That-
right now. A little bit.
I think I would have to
You
say it's
disagree,
not.
huh?
I think that group is getting smaller.
I hear about it more nowadays.
I think we hear about it more
Yeah.
just because there's more social media, but I think the masses just still want a super cool car, makes them look good, feel good, drives well, and that's pretty much it. And be dependable.
Yeah.
I think.
If anything, the cars or cars that are going to become older, like if you buy a new 718 with the manual or a Carrera T, that will probably hold on to its value for a longer period of time because people, once the manuals are gone, will want that feel. Just like air cooled, people who didn't grow up with air cooled want air cooled because they want to see what the big deal is and what it was like. What's the myth behind that air cool?
So let me throw this one at you. This one's going to really mess you up. So there are people that are getting into their spending days where they don't even know air cooled. They grew up in a backseat of a 997. That's the old car for them. And they don't, and that 997 may have had PDK. They don't even know what a manual is. So they're not even dreaming of it.
Well, that's the Chinese market.
Yeah,
Chinese
true,
market
true,
does not have
yeah.
any history like we do with Porsche. They didn't grow up seeing the movie Le Mans. They didn't see 911s on the street. To them, that's what I remember Porsche telling me, that they were nervous coming out with, I think it was a 991 at the time, but debuting the new Porsche, because when they unveiled it, they thought, well, they're going to say that's not a Porsche. Porsches have 4 doors,
Right.
Because that's what they were
That's
selling in
that market,
China,
yeah.
and that's it. I think Porsche will. What part of the struggle also is that it's not. Is it an aspirational brand in China like it is in North America and Europe? I don't know. It's if you don't have the history of seeing these cars, then does it really matter?
Well, not only do you not have the history in China, but if your government is, I wouldn't say pushing you, but encouraging you to be more nationalistic and buying a Chinese brand, and all of a sudden, socially, when you roll up in a non-Chinese vehicle and your friends and family like, why did you buy that and not buy a car from?
It's a much worse look in China than if it were here in the
Right?
U.S.
Yeah.
I would think at least.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
growing up, how many people do we know that's like, I only drive a Ford or a Chevy or a Mopar?
Toyota.
Wasn't that the way it was in Detroit during the gas crisis and whatnot? That if you drove a foreign car to, if you worked for like GM or Ford, and I remember reading that you would never drive your like Honda, which
Oh,
was great
yeah.
gas mileage,
Yeah.
to work there, park in the parking lot, because odds are they'd be scratched up or you have
look
flat
like a
tires.
traitor.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Which is
That's
funny
crazy.
because,
That's crazy. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because their sales were going down the tank because they didn't have the gas mileage cars that the Japanese were bringing in. So you were looked at as a trader. I don't know if that was around the whole country, but certainly in Detroit, I remember reading where people would park their cars outside the lot, not to admit that they were driving there.
And to some extent, I think Korea has done the same. And if you look at, okay, I'm going to admit it, I watch K dramas, and so you see.
That's
don't laugh too loud. But
Do you watch the Lifetime channel?
but when you watch these movies, they're so proud of Kia and Hyundais that's primarily all you see. So people watching these K dramas are thinking the cool person has the nicer Genesis and and kind of building the dreams like that. It's very interesting when you have external forces.
That's what I mean.
Shaping your ideals, right?
The enthusiast that's coming out now and going to be in the future is the manual going to really matter as much?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Especially when you have to learn manual.
So you heard about the what was it? The Honda new Prelude.
The Prelude coming out, yeah.
Has so it's electric motors. Now I have to admit I haven't read into this super hard because that car, it looks cool, but I'm pretty sure it's the Civic hybrid powertrain, so 2 electric motors with the generator. But the electric motors obviously drive the wheels. They're going to have a fake manual transmission with fake shifts in the Prelude.
I did
So it's
see that.
all EV, but
It's all EV, and you're not really doing anything, but the car will make it seem like it'll, I'm sure, buck if you miss a shift, quote unquote, or whatever it might be.
Simulate.
It'll simulate shifting.
I wonder how many people who have PDK, live with PDK, still shift manually with the PDK, or they just put it in drive and let it. Because I know from us, going to Europe and being given a car with PDK for a week, the manual shifting was maybe the first hour, and then it was like, I'm just putting it in drive. This thing's so freaking smart.
I was gonna say not even for an hour, and we were driving in some cases on track, and I didn't touch them. I mean, I just
on track. It was definitely
let the car do its thing. It was
busy enough trying to remember if left or right.
Much smarter than I.
See, I'd be opposite. Whenever I get into an automatic or PDK, I just leave it in automatic now. I've long resigned to the fact that it takes. There's something about shifting a manual with a clutch that doesn't take a lot of thought. But when you're in an automatic car or PDK and you're shifting manually, like you have to think about shifting. It's a weird.
I know what you're talking about, though.
Yeah. It just feels really weird
because you're trying to see if you can't beat the computer and do the right choice.
Yeah.
Right?
And, there's something that is distracting about shifting in an automatic car unless you're on like a track or a twisted.
The first gen I remember at PSM was Sport Plus, especially on the track. It would take it all the way up the red line. Yeah. And so more often than not, we were like hitting the red line like this because it just revved so fast. Now I was like, I know I'm going slower doing it manually because I'm hitting the red line every time.
Right.
Where just let the computer do it and I can just drive.
Yeah.
Having said all that, I love the fact that we have manuals in our fleet, and I do very much enjoy it. It's like a ritual. It's a perfect dance. I might be slower. I might not be as efficient, but it's just a cool thing to do, and I enjoy it.
It was kind of sad, like knowing the car can do heel and toe perfect every time. It was, to me, it was kind of sad because it was one of the skills that I knew how to do,
right,
that a lot of people didn't know how to heel and toe, and now. It's like this thing is flawless every single time. It will.
I think I've used this analogy before. Growing up, I skied a lot, and I skied pair of 195s, and my skis were edge to edge when I skied, and I worked at that long and hard. And then just after college, I went skiing again, and the way they ski now is they ski wide skis, shorter skis, and they don't have
it's
your
like 6 inches between.
You have a wider stance, and I'm like, what the heck? Like it's just that the art's gone, just gone. And you know what though? I tried those skis, tried that stance. It is better, and it's easier to ski. Turn in's better. You're more comfortable, but you don't have that look. You don't have that feel. It's just not the same.
Now, were you the type when CDs came out that you stuck to vinyl for a while, or
no?
Did you embrace CD?
I did. I embrace CD. I like clean sound,
Same
and
here.
I liked. People were saying, "Oh, but you don't have the natural pops, and you don't have the way it was pressed." And like I'm an audio person, but when it's, you know, cleaner data, like you just can't.
I was
you
going
just-
to say when manufacturing defects are getting in the way of
yeah.
sound quality.
No, for me it was an easy transition to CDs because of that. There was no skipping. They were not as fragile to handle as a vinyl record was, and certainly a lot less expensive than when you factored in a cartridge, a turntable. And I remember all the debates with direct drive and belt drive, and they had those little things, I forget they were called. You put them under the turntable to isolate sound, and this was so easy to just slide the CD in. And
I'm laughing because I have to share a story. So my uncle, who is super audio record head, you know, has thousands of records, and when CDs came out, he was kind of the same way. He was like all about the vintage vinyl, and he still is to this day. I was into CDs, and I heard that they were more durable, this, that, and the other. And I took one of my brand new CDs. I'm like, Uncle, this is so much better than, like, you can literally scratch this and just, you know, continue to play the music. So I took it and I scratched it and it didn't work.
Oh God!
He's like, I thought you said it would work. I'm like, I thought so too.
Oh.
It's less prone to scratches, but it's not scratch proof.
and you can polish it.
Yeah.
because it's not the plastic.
Yeah,
that's
but I
reading.
totally ruined a perfect CD trying to make a point, and my uncle's like, "Yeah, no, that didn't work." All right, let's make sure if you haven't signed up for PCA's newsletters, head over to pca.org. We have performance news, e-brake news, and Mart Fresh, all free to you. In the news, we're going to talk about double podium for Porsche in Mexico City.
yes, so the Formula E has already started this year, and Porsche is leading the manufacturer's race by 1 point. So these Formula E's, they do two races per weekend, and Porsche won one race, and they lost the second race. The second one, they got second place, like in the last lap. It was a pretty good race to watch. But the Tag Heuer Porsche Formula E team is leading the teams and the manufacturers.
I know you have the next one. You're going to be talking about Dubai. I have a question for you, or maybe a prediction that you might have. Like,
Okay.
it's expensive to race, and with world market and sales decline, like what do you think the relationship, like in the 80s when Porsche wasn't doing too well, did they retract from the racing, or did they it was two different buckets?
Oh yeah, remember they went 18 years without you were in the club when they went 18 years without going for the overall. The GT1 was their last win in '98.
But that was before me, though. I wasn't in the club.
Yeah, but you were in the club while we were still waiting.
Well, they're still waiting. Yeah.
Remember, they went and they built the SUV instead of going to Le Mans.
Yeah.
They were racing class all the time,
Yeah.
but not going up to prototype was a whole different checkbook required, and they only had limited funds. So they knew how important the SUV program was, so they were putting all their eggs in the SUV basket and realizing that racing wasn't going to cut it. So we didn't see them in top level racing. I mean, the fans still came out every year to Daytona to watch those privateers run, to watch once in a while the factory would send. For the longest time, the factory would support teams like Brumos, Flying Lizards. They weren't the official factory team, but I remember you would go to the garages and watch, and you'd hear a lot of German being spoken for people that
So
weren't
they were
the factory
supporting
team.
as opposed to
they sent a lot of people over to help these teams that they picked as the racers group.
Yeah.
I even watched them suddenly switch teams during the race when they realized that such and such team looked like they may have the
Better chance
a
of winning.
chance of winning.
Okay.
You would see the motorsport walk over and suddenly start hanging around that tent, helping them out with as much information and whatnot to get them to the checkered line. So, yeah, don't take for granted like the fact they're running for top line GTP and Formula E and whatnot, that it's always going to be like that. Racing is very, very expensive.
Now, how about cars that they were producing? Like, for example, I know we have the GT4 Club Sport program in club racing. I believe PMNA allowed PCA members to buy about 20 cars to go racing in 2025. We'll have a point series to support all that. During those difficult times in the 80s, were they making club race cars or cars that?
Yeah, so they had in the 90s at least. 80s, I can't remember. But I remember when I did the article for the C4 Lightweight, Jurgen Barth said that the reason he was able to build a C4 Lightweight was because he was in charge of the customer racing department. And that was one of the few departments for Porsche that was making money. So when he said he wanted to build a C4 Lightweight, they gave him the go-ahead, even though they were nearly bankrupt, because that was hopefully another way to generate revenue. It was going to be a rally series that he was building it for. And they were still building the 962, even though they had stopped racing them in IMSA as a factory entry. In Japan, they still had a series for 962. So basically, they were anything that would make money, that they could make money on customer racing, they did.
Interesting. Updates of Dubai.
Yeah, so they evidently have a 24-hour series that is, I guess, the holdover in between from when WEC starts. So they had a 24-hour race in Dubai. This is not where the GTP cars would run. These are more of the GT3 cars or the GT cars. And Porsche was leading for the longest time, and I thought they were going to win this. But the new BMW M4 GT3 Evo edged them out near the end and took the win. And Pure Racing took second place, and the Dynamic GT group got third place overall. And Porsche won, I believe, Pro-Am with in their class. Good start. I wish there was some easy place that you could find where they broadcast this without having to pay streaming money to watch the race, because it'd be a nice holdover, especially if the Ravens don't continue in their playoff run. As we're recording this, the Buffalo Bills are their next stop, and that's going to be a tough game against the Bills. So then you have that long period after the 24 hours till Sebring in March. So yeah, it'd be great if we had a racing channel that showed stuff like this.
All right. Before we get into videos, let's just remind everyone some of the events that are coming up. We have Works Reunion, Amelia Island, Amelia River Club, March 7th. The judge entries are sold out. We still have room in the corral. We have Treffin Homestead, April 30th to May 4th in Hot Spring, Virginia. Registration opens February 5th. Porsche Parade, Oklahoma City, July 6th through 12th. Treffin at Sea, our 70th anniversary cruise, sailing August 30th to September 6th, and registration is open there. And I got an update that we are at 865 folks already registered for the cruise. Latest video that I watched was...
Did they get any more entertainment after the Charo announcement?
Charo, Temptations, Jill Whalen, and myself.
I'm going to put you a little bit above Charo and Jill Whalen, and a little bit below the Temptation, because there's only one Temptation left.
Maybe I'll audition.
We got to keep that guy alive, at least until July.
Oh my gosh, you did not go there. Let's talk about that colorful 911 that you dropped in a recent video.
The BB Auto 911 Targa Hybrid. So I drove that in November, and I started the video before Unstock and then drove the car after Unstock. So it was a little bit hopping around and filming it when I could. But I drove it in Van Nuys area, starting off at Galpin Autosport, which is just where the car was residing at the time. In case you don't know, Galpin Motors owns Porsche Santa Clarita and a whole bunch of dealerships in Van Nuys area, and Galpin Autosport, which you've heard of. I think it's most well known for Pimp My Ride back in the day, but the quality of work and the types of cars that go through there are not quite like that. Yeah, there were two places, West Coast Customs and
I did not realize that.
Galpin Autosport.
Yeah. And if you've been to the LA Auto Show in recent years,
Had their own wing.
they have their own wing.
Yeah.
Shout out to Verone.
Yes, Verone. He was amazing. He is the general manager at BB Auto, but also has worked with Galpin for a while now. Really good dude. He invited me out there. He gave me a tour of Galpin Autosport, and that is pretty cool, amazing place. There was it really, really was. I mean, I saw a second-gen Ford Focus RS, which was not the four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. It's a front-wheel drive with the Revo knuckle and 300-something horsepower, and we never got it.
They have some crazy cars there.
They had some crazy cars there. But, of course, they had all sorts of stuff in one of their showrooms. And as soon as I'll put some pictures up, but as soon as I was done looking at all that and picked my jaw up off the ground, we got the BB911 out and I drove it. So on one hand, it would be nice to drive in this car. So this car's sort of party piece is the a hybrid system by Vonnen, and adds 150 horsepower of electric drive to an Ed Pink Racing 4-liter, 400 horsepower air-cooled flat six.
550 horsepower in a G-body car.
Yeah, estimated. And
Which was
it was
218, 217 stock, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. 217.
So it would have been nice to have like a car with a stock engine to see how much the Vonnen hybrid drive is doing. Because I can tell you, if you want a lot of horsepower and like turbocharged horsepower, but without having to wait for turbochargers, I was scared to go beyond. You know,
Really?
like, Redline was not. I was not anywhere near. I was at least 2,000 RPM away from Redline.
So
in most cases,
where did the one?
it was also the roads. It was not an area
Yeah.
where you can drive fast, but like just the feeling. That's a fast car. You need a
But it's a very seemed like a very drivable
yeah,
car.
very
It
drivable, very
wasn't
drivable.
Like a
but man,
bucking horsepower that you couldn't
Yeah.
do any more than
no, tractive dampers, electronically controlled for roll and pitch. Short shifter, gas pedal was great. The brakes were Brembos with 2-piece rotors. Elephant Racing supplied most of the suspension components, so it was really locked down. Good ride. It's how I like it. You know, slightly firm, but you know, fairly compliant.
When does the hybrid system kick in, or can you?
On this car, I felt it around 4,000 RPM or so.
Okay.
Because you get going, and I did a couple second gear pulls. You get going, and it's like the engine's strong.
Yeah.
And then, like a turbocharger, it's not really noticeable in the. You just think, what was that? Like, why am I going even faster? So it's just a never-ending,
But not
ramp up in power, you know. And so it's all engine. I think at the right now, how I drove it until 3,500, and then you start feeling the electric motor pushing you.
But it's a smooth kick in. It's not like a
it felt
punch.
smooth to me, but I think
Okay.
you can program it differently.
You can
Again,
program
I
it,
think Vonnen allows you to do things like you can have the electric motor always there helping, or just when you have the last 20% of the throttle pushed.
Probably
or
you can shape
kicks
the
in
power
a certain-
curve to
so
your-
you can
to your
shape the
taste.
power curve.
Yeah.
But yeah, it picks up, and it just is, again, it's like it's a turbocharged feeling, but without the breathing and the waiting that you have to do. Like it's just instant.
Gosh, if it was just more.
But you wouldn't know it if
I would-
someone didn't tell you.
Man, just think if our cars had 150 more horsepower.
It's like it comes on cam. How about that? It's like it comes on cam really hard.
That would make our cars really lively. And if you just had to put that, it's a little battery. You put in a new flywheel,
Flywheel
cranks up,
motor.
and not really do anything that I'm assuming you could put it back to stock if you wanted to go back.
Yep.
That's a pretty cool option. It's just the price tag. Right?
If it were cheaper, and hopefully it comes down in price at some
What would you
point.
pay? What would you pay for 150 more horsepower?
That's a tough one, because the way I look at the math is, how much more? What other cars can I buy for the amount of money I'm going to add to my car?
Yeah.
You know, it's I'm probably not the best person for that system. Even if it was, let's say, $10,000, I'd still say,
Yeah. Well, you go to TPC, and their turbocharging systems start probably in almost 10 or
I was
more.
going to say 15.
15 and probably go up from there. So I don't know. Like, I'm not in that market, but let's say I save my money, and 5-10 years from now, I want a little more horsepower for the Cayman. If they made something like that for the Cayman, I would pay 15-20 grand for that, but not 75.
Yeah,
like
that's
that's
the
the,
75
me,
grand
I
is a
would
big
put the money first in the suspension,
Yeah.
and then the horsepower would be.
yeah. But it's such a good system, and as I said, the way it was set up in the BB car, it felt like it just came on cam super hard at around 4,000
It had Ed Pink. What
Ed Pink Racing, yeah.
was it still 3.2, or did he?
No, it's
4
4-liter.
liter.
Oh,
yeah.
So, and the reason I
that
say
motor-
all this is,
that motor is probably 35 grand,
yeah, if not more,
if not more.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And the reason I mention all this is because I really had to pay attention to feel what was happening.
Yeah.
And it would have been, I think, more apparent in the actual hybrid drive side of things. I probably would have been able to.
Ed Pink builds Singer motors.
Singer motors, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that car without the hybrid system, to me, is probably a wild ride as it is.
Yeah.
And then you add the hybrid system onto it, just makes it silly.
So very cool. Pay attention to BB. You know, it's a very polarizing sort of car, but you know they do good work.
You gotta like that.
You gotta like it, exactly.
You gotta like that flashy 70s late.
But he said you could order
You
your
can
car
order.
without
You
all
don't
that
need
stuff.
like the Polaroid, and just so everyone knows, it's a Polaroid collaboration. Polaroid made parking sensors back in the day, so it was one of those.
If you remember Polaroid, their logo was the
multicolored rainbow, just like what Instagram was inspired with their first logos. So just to be perfectly clear about
just
that,
like Apple's first logo, I believe, was multicolored too.
So you can get the car with any sort of exterior that you want, any sort of interior color combination.
But if they had built their car just black with the black interior and a hybrid, it would have never got the attention that it got as what it was.
That livery or paint job, whatever you want to call it, did its job, because that car is
I think you can see the interior from space.
So that's the prototype. They're building 7 more. So hit up.
Is there a limitation on number of cars, or just
for the 50th anniversary? So that's technically a 50th anniversary BB 911.
Oh, okay.
So they're making 7 of those.
Okay.
And I'm sure, you know, like if you don't need to have the quote unquote 50th anniversary car, they'll probably build you.
That would be an ultimate sleeper.
Oh my god!
Just get a regular like red or black with no stripes and no and not even special seats, and put a hybrid system with an Ed Pink 4-liter.
That's great.
Wow.
Ultimate sleeper.
Yeah, ultimate. So there was that. We also have the deep dive into Montai Racing, the GT4 RS kit,
And that was filmed at Tech Tactics
East in 2024. So a little while ago, we're posting the rest. I think there are 1 or 2 more Tech Tactics East videos, maybe, but I know we have a lot of parade videos. And the next one, by the time you're listening to this, I've got a feeling this might be the next big video.
Did you sit in on this one, or I don't know if you were around?
Which one was
repairing new Porsches? The bodywork that goes into
I've sat in. I didn't sit in that one, but I've sat in that presentation before.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
If you want to remove the subframe, for example, to do any sort of work on a 992, you are taking off several panels, removing adhesive,
and
unbolting screws.
Different materials, different adhesives, different way to connect things.
And it doesn't go back the same way.
No.
If you buy a newer Porsche, it really underscores having good insurance.
Yeah.
That isn't going to say you use used parts, or doesn't want to authorize Porsche Repair Center, Collision Center to repair it, because Porsche won't sell a lot of these parts to anyone except an authorized collision center.
Yeah,
and
in the U.S.
I don't think
and
Europe,
you can buy the parts in Mexico, for example. He was saying there are ways around it. But,
So the key is that it's not fixed like the way they assembled it, and that's what he goes through in this presentation. He goes through how they build it, the special fasteners they use, adhesive. And then he goes into how they fix it and how you can't use these fasteners anymore. But what's the alternative they use to bring it back to factory standards, which means if it's in an accident again, you're going to have the same survival rate as it was when new.
Yeah, and very specific adhesives. Like you might have 4 different adhesives in one corner of the car for the repair, but that adhesive or half of those adhesives were not used in building the car.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And he has
very
the fasteners. He has computer animation showing how they work, how they hold things together, how you have to have the special tools to be able to put them in. It's a really deep dive into how these newer cars are built.
Yeah, it gives you a much better. We've said it before with mechanics, but in this case, we're going to say it for collision repair facilities. And if you're wondering why a fender or a corner of your car is taking months to fix, it's not like back in the old days where you just drill out a spot weld and hang a fender and prime it and paint it and call it a day. Like, they have to make sure your car is structurally as strong as it was originally built, and that repair is not the same process as building the car. And that's what they got to learn. Imagine having to invest in people to learn that process and have all the tools and have all the inventory to do that. If your car is wrecked, it's going to be a while.
Yeah, DIYers, for certain things, ain't going to happen on some of the newer cars. So something to keep in mind.
All right. Well, let's talk about PCA Sim Racing. I did post up recently. You should have seen some race coverage from one of the recent PCA Sim Racing. It is incredible how realistic it is, and the reason why we posted it off is we wanted to share the news with Princess Cruise Lines as the official sponsor of PCA Sim Racing. So if you want to check that out, head over to pcasimracing.com, or you can check out PCA Sim Racing on YouTube. They have that posted there as well. If you're looking for PCA Insider swag, we have bugs. We have bottles and mugs, not bugs, bottles and mugs available for you. If you're looking for a PCA Insider decal, just email your address information to podcast@pca.org and we'll send you a set. New on the PCA web store as well, you'll find the 70th PCA 70th anniversary merchandise. Lots of shirts, tops, bags, all sorts of stuff. So if you want to support the new 70th anniversary logo, check that out. Little factoid, the 70th anniversary logo for PCA was designed by Porsche Design. So we worked with them and they came up with a cool image for us. So it is a little bit past the top of the hour. Anything else before we wrap up, gentlemen?
I think I'm good.
Good. All right. Well, thank you for listening. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and consider sharing our show with fellow Porsche enthusiasts. Until next time, stay safe, and we'll catch you down the road.